Resource dependency theory explains how an organization's behavior and structure are shaped by the external resources it relies on for survival. This influential management theory highlights the importance of managing interdependencies to gain a competitive advantage. Resource dependency theory offers a valuable perspective on how organizations navigate their external environments and dependencies to acquire critical resources, maintain power, and ensure their long-term survival. Resource dependency theory focuses on how organizations depend on resources from their external environment to survive and thrive. It examines power dynamics and strategies to manage uncertainty and control critical resources. The foundations of resource dependency theory can be traced back to Herbert Simon's work on administrative behavior and decision-making in organizations. James D. Thompson's 1967 book, Organizations in Action, introduced the open systems perspective, emphasizing the role of the external environment in organizational functioning. Jeffrey Pfeffer and Gerald R. Solanjic's seminal work, The External Control of Organizations, A Resource Dependence Perspective, is considered the foundational text of resource dependency theory. Organizations are dependent on critical resources in their external environment, which creates interdependence between the organization and its suppliers, distributors, and other entities. Power imbalances exist between organizations, with some having more control over resources than others, leading to power differentials. Organizations seek to manage environmental uncertainty and reduce their dependence on external resources by employing various strategies. They have the ability to make strategic choices to acquire and manage resources and power relationships with other organizations. Organizations are interdependent with elements in their external environment, such as suppliers, customers, and competitors, which creates a need to manage these dependencies. They seek to exercise control over critical resources and reduce their dependence on external parties, giving them more power and influence. Organizations aim to manage environmental uncertainty by proactively acquiring and maintaining control over the resources they need to operate effectively. They can employ various strategies to manage resource dependencies, such as mergers, joint ventures, or political tactics to minimize their vulnerability. Organizations become interdependent when they rely on each other's resources, capabilities, or outputs to function effectively. Interdependence can arise from the need to coordinate workflows, share information, or align strategic objectives. It manifests through the exchange of resources, such as materials, services, or knowledge, between organizations. Organizations with control over critical resources possess greater power and influence over those who rely on those resources. They leverage their resource advantages to negotiate more favorable terms and conditions with resource-dependent partners. Power imbalances lead to asymmetric interdependence, where one organization is more dependent on the other. Organizations may co-opt external entities to reduce environmental uncertainty and dependencies, gaining more control. Organizations can reduce environmental uncertainty by actively monitoring and gathering information about the external environment, trends, and potential changes. Adopting flexible structures, processes, and decision-making capabilities allows organizations to adapt quickly to dynamic environmental conditions. Establishing relationships and networks with external stakeholders, such as suppliers, customers, and regulators, can provide insights and resources to navigate uncertainty. Organizations employ various strategies to manage their dependencies on critical resources and external stakeholders. These include directly acquiring resources, merging with or acquiring other organizations, forming joint ventures, and outsourcing to external providers. Organizations can acquire suppliers, distributors, or other entities within their value chain to secure critical resources and reduce dependencies. Combining with other organizations can provide access to new resources, capabilities, and markets, helping to manage resource dependencies. Collaborating with external partners can enable resource sharing and co-development, mitigating dependencies on individual organizations. Expanding into new markets, products, or services can reduce reliance on a single resource provider and increase flexibility. Mergers and acquisitions can help organizations acquire critical resources they lack, such as new technologies, patents, customer bases, or distribution channels. By merging with or acquiring another firm, organizations can reduce environmental uncertainty and dependencies by gaining more control over their resource supply. Mergers and acquisitions can increase an organization's power and influence over its industry, competitors, and key stakeholders. Acquiring firms in different industries or markets can help diversify an organization's resource base and reduce its dependence on any one resource stream. Joint ventures allow organizations to pool resources, expertise, and capabilities to achieve shared goals. Alliances enable companies to leverage each other's strengths and gain a competitive edge in the market. Joint ventures and alliances help organizations share the risk associated with new initiatives or uncertain environments. Outsourcing key business functions to specialized providers allows organizations to focus on their core competencies and leverage external expertise. Subcontracting production or services can significantly reduce operating costs and capital expenditures, improving financial efficiency. Outsourcing and subcontracting enable organizations to rapidly scale operations, respond to fluctuating demand, and adapt to changing market conditions. Resource dependency theory suggests that organizations can manage external dependencies by co-opting influential external stakeholders and incorporating them into the decision-making process. Organizations can also pursue political strategies to manage resource dependencies, such as lobbying, forming alliances, and using personal connections to influence policymakers and regulators. Organizational leaders may also engage in negotiation and bargaining with external stakeholders to secure access to critical resources on more favorable terms. Resource dependency theory can oversimplify the complex relationships between organizations and their environments. It tends to focus on short-term responses to environmental uncertainty, ignoring long-term dynamics. The theory places too much emphasis on external factors, overlooking the role of internal organizational processes. Quantifying and assessing the degree of interdependence between organizations can be challenging. Resource dependency theory has been criticized for oversimplifying the complex relationships between organizations and their environments. The theory has been seen as too deterministic, failing to account for the strategic and proactive nature of organizational decision-making. Some researchers have argued that the empirical evidence supporting the theory's key propositions is mixed and inconsistent. The theory has been criticized for focusing too heavily on external factors and neglecting the role of internal organizational dynamics. Numerous empirical studies have found strong support for the theory's core propositions, including the impact of environmental uncertainty, organizational interdependence, and power dynamics on organizational strategies and structures. Researchers have used both cross-sectional and longitudinal data to examine the predictive validity of resource dependency theory across diverse industries and contexts. Meta-analytic reviews have synthesized the cumulative evidence, confirming the theory's ability to explain a range of organizational behaviors and outcomes. Resource dependency theory provides insights into how organizations can manage external dependencies and power dynamics to gain competitive advantage. The theory sheds light on how organizational structures, decision-making, and individual behaviors are shaped by resource dependencies. Public administration principles help explain the interactions between government agencies, nonprofits, and other stakeholders competing for limited public resources. Nonprofits often rely on external funding sources, applying a critical framework for understanding their strategic choices. Resource dependency theory highlights how organizations can leverage external resources to gain a competitive edge and enhance their strategic position. Organizations may pursue diversification strategies to reduce dependencies on specific resources or markets, and increase their flexibility and resilience. Forming strategic alliances and partnerships can help organizations manage resource dependencies, access complementary resources, and navigate uncertain environments. Resource dependency theory in organizational behavior examines how an organization's behavior and structure are shaped by its dependence on external resources and the resulting power dynamics. Managers make strategic choices to manage resource dependencies and reduce environmental uncertainty. Organizations adapt their structures and processes to acquire critical resources and minimize dependencies. Interpersonal relationships are influenced by resource dependencies, affecting communication and collaboration within the organization. Public agencies rely on external resources and relationships to achieve their goals, leading to interdependencies that shape their behavior and decision-making. Resource dependency theory highlights how public organizations can use strategies like mergers, joint ventures, and lobbying to manage power imbalances and dependencies. Agencies must navigate complex, resource-constrained environments, requiring adaptive approaches to acquire critical resources and minimize uncertainty. Inter-organizational collaboration, such as shared service agreements and network governance, can help public agencies acquire resources and manage dependencies. Non-profit organizations often rely on external funding sources like grants, donations, and government subsidies, making them highly susceptible to resource dependency challenges. They must balance their need for resources with preserving their mission and values, requiring strategic management of dependencies to avoid undue influence from funders. Developing multiple revenue streams can help nonprofits reduce their vulnerability to the loss of a single funding source and maintain greater independence. Resource dependency theory may not apply equally well in all organizational contexts and environments. The theory does not fully capture the intricate interplay of multiple dependencies and power dynamics. Organizations may face challenges in balancing the need for autonomy and the need to manage dependencies. Resource dependency theory can be integrated with other prominent organizational theories to provide a more comprehensive understanding of firm behavior and performance. By combining RDT with the resource-based view, transaction cost economics, and institutional theory, scholars can explore the complex interplay between internal capabilities, external environment, and organizational structures. The resource-based view emphasizes a firm's internal resources and capabilities as the primary drivers of competitive advantage, rather than the external environment. The VRIN framework identifies resources that are valuable, rare, inimitable, and non-substitutable as key sources of sustainable competitive advantage. The resource-based view highlights how resource heterogeneity and immobility across firms lead to performance differences and sustainable competitive advantages. Transaction cost economics focuses on analyzing the costs associated with economic transactions, such as buying, selling, or contracting. It examines how different governance structures, like markets or hierarchies, impact the efficiency and effectiveness of transactions. The theory considers the risks of opportunism and the impact of asset specificity on transaction costs. Transaction cost economics can complement resource dependency theory in understanding organizational decision-making and management. Institutional theory focuses on how organizations are shaped by the broader social, cultural, and regulatory environment they operate in. Organizations often adopt structures and practices that are seen as legitimate and appropriate by their institutional context, even if they are not the most efficient. Organizations tend to become more similar to each other over time as they imitate successful practices and structures to gain legitimacy. Resource dependency theory can be integrated with the resource-based view to provide a more comprehensive understanding of how organizations acquire and leverage resources. Linking resource dependency theory with transaction cost economics can offer insights into how organizations manage dependencies and minimize costs associated with external resource exchanges. Combining resource dependency theory with institutional theory can elucidate how organizations navigate the institutional environment and leverage dependencies to gain legitimacy and efficiency. Align resource dependency management with overall organizational strategy and objectives. Foster collaboration across functional areas to effectively manage resource dependencies. Proactively identify and mitigate risks associated with resource dependencies. Develop the flexibility to adapt organizational structures and processes to changing resource dependencies. Resource dependency theory can help policymakers develop regulations that address organizational dependencies and power imbalances, ensuring fair access to critical resources. Insights from this theory can inform public investment decisions, such as infrastructure projects or subsidies, to mitigate environmental uncertainties and strengthen organizational resilience. More empirical studies are needed to further validate the key tenets of resource dependency theory across diverse organizational contexts. Exploring how industry dynamics, technological changes, and regulatory environments shape organizational dependencies and power dynamics. Investigating the complex network of interdependencies in organizations and their impact on strategic choices and outcomes. This overview has explored the key concepts and applications of resource dependency theory, highlighting its insights into organizational interdependence, power dynamics, and strategies for managing environmental uncertainty. While the theory offers valuable perspectives, its limitations and the need to integrate it with complementary frameworks have also been discussed. Organizations are dependent on external resources and must manage these dependencies to ensure survival and success. Organizations seek to acquire power and control over the resources they depend on, giving them more influence and stability. Organizations can employ various strategies like mergers, joint ventures, and political tactics to manage their resource dependencies. Resource dependency theory has received strong empirical support across different organizational contexts and research settings.